There's always so much energy around new blockchain technologies in there. Everyone's hunting for that next leap forward.
Yeah, the one that truly delivers on speed and scaling.
Exactly. And when you look across the landscape right now, especially, pulling from these recent market reports and tech deep dives from May and June 2025 we've got here, one name keeps popping up as a major contender: Aptos.
It really does. I mean, in a space that moves this fast, figuring out which platforms have the right tech foundation and the ecosystem growth to potentially become significant players.
Yeah, that's critical. It's about cutting through all the noise to find the actual signal,
Totally. So our mission today is a deep dive into Aptos APT, that layer 1 blockchain with, a pretty unique origin story spinning out of Meta's old DM project.
Right.
We're going to unpack what these sources are telling us, how it works under the hood, its current market status based on this specific May-June 2025 data, its potential path forward, and of course, the challenges it faces. The goal is basically to help you get a really well-informed perspective on Aptos, and quickly. Understanding this particular network, its place in the whole crypto landscape.
It's key, right, to grasping where things are heading. Why should you care about another layer 1?
Exactly. Let's dive into what the data suggests.
Okay, let's start with the foundation then. What is Aptos at its core, according to these sources?
Well, the sources nail it down as a layer 1 proof-of-stake blockchain. Pretty standard setup, you might think.
But the backstory is where it gets interesting.
Totally. That DM connection.
Oh, definitely. That origin is fascinating. Founded by ex-Meta folks, Mo Sheikh and Avery Cheng.
Right. They were key people on the DM project, Meta's ambitious crypto plan that got shelved.
Yeah, so when DM wound down in early 2022, they basically took the tech foundations, the research,
and just ran with it.
Used it to build Aptos Labs, launching only a few months later. Pretty quick turnaround.
And that history, that DM DNA, it heavily influenced Aptos's core aims, right? Building something high-performance, scalable, secure.
Specifically for dApps. Yeah. And using the Move programming language.
Which also came out of DM.
And they really hit the ground running. Mainnet launched October 2022. They called it Aptos Autumn.
Catchy name.
Plus, they snagged some really significant early funding. Huge institutional backing.
Yeah. The sources mentioned the big names. A16s, Binance Labs, even FTX Ventures back then.
Shows the timeline, yeah.
Jump Crypto. And valuations hitting, up to $4 billion early on?
Crazy numbers. That kind of backing definitely put them on the map instantly.
For sure. So, okay, how does it actually aim to hit those big performance goals? The sources point to a few key tech differentiators. These are central to Aptos.
First up is that Move programming language we mentioned.
Right. Rust-based, designed specifically with digital assets in mind.
And the sources really hammer home its focus on safety for smart contracts.
Yeah, the whole idea is preventing common bugs, exploits, making it hard to accidentally, copy or lose digital assets.
They're meant to be moved, hence the name. Makes sense.
And what's really cool about Move, according to these sources, is the Move Prover tool.
Okay, what's that?
Think of it like a built-in check, a formal verifier. It's designed to check smart contracts before they go live on the chain.
Oh, wow, that's huge. Because we've seen how costly smart contract bugs can be.
Exactly. Millions lost. The Move Prover aims to catch those critical errors proactively. Big selling point.
Then there's the engine driving the speed. Block-STM technology.
Right. This is a major reason they're targeting insane speeds over 160,000 transactions per second.
160K TPS. Wow. Have they actually hit that?
Well, Aptos Labs' own tests indicate they can hit that capability. And Block-STM gets there by processing transactions optimistically and in parallel.
Okay, break that down, optimistically and in parallel.
So instead of doing transactions one by one sequentially,
like a lot of older chains.
Right. Aptos processes many simultaneously. The optimistic part means it just assumes transactions won't conflict at first.
And if they do?
The system spots it and then just reruns the ones that failed.
Yeah.
Uses smart memory management. It's way more efficient with computing power.
Gotcha. That parallel processing is the core of the speed then.
Absolutely. They also use a custom consensus mechanism, Aptos BFT.
Based on hot stuff.
Yeah. Specifically, version 4 is mentioned. It's a Byzantine fault tolerance thing.
BFT. Okay. So that's about security and reliability.
Exactly. It ensures the network keeps running correctly and securely, even if, say, up to a third of the validators are offline or acting badly.
So you combine Move's safety, Block-STM's parallel speed, and Aptos BFT's security.
And that's their recipe for a high-performance, scalable chain.
The sources also quickly mentioned its modular design.
Yeah, which is good for updates, makes it easier to upgrade parts of the network later without breaking everything. And there's some stuff about a specific data model for validators too, making things efficient for them.
Okay, so that's the tech foundation. What about life on Aptos? What's the ecosystem like now, based on this May-June 2025 data?
Well, the picture painted is one of pretty rapid growth. One report we saw mentions over 194 projects and integrations already building or connecting.
194 plus Moody. That's pretty substantial for a chain that only launched late 2022.
It really is. And the types of D-apps cover the main crypto areas,
Like DeFi.
Yep. Lending and borrowing, like Ares markets. Decentralized exchanges, DXs like Solana Finance and Pontum Networks Liquid Swap are mentioned.
What about staking?
Liquid staking seems to be gaining steam too. Protocols like Amnes Finance, Tortuga Finance.
They let you stake your APT but still get a liquid token back, right? Like Stage APT or AMAPT.
Exactly. So you earn rewards, but your capital isn't totally locked up. You can use those liquid tokens elsewhere in DeFi. Boosts capital efficiency.
Makes sense. And beyond DeFi.
Activity in NFTs, gaming, even community tokens like Gi Inu used for engagement and grants, apparently.
And there's active support for this growth.
Yeah, seems so. The sources mention things like the Aptos Ecosystem Fund, aimed specifically at helping developers build on the platform.
Giving out grants and resources.
Right. And that support seems to be showing up in the numbers. Aptos ranks as the 11th largest blockchain by total value locked, according to this data.
TVL number 11. That's a pretty solid indicator of DeFi activity and confidence.
Definitely a key metric to watch.
Okay, let's talk about the fuel for all this. The APT token itself, what's its role? How's it structured?
So APT is the native crypto, essential for running the network.
And its main jobs are?
Paying transaction fees, obviously, securing the network through staking, and governance.
Governance, so token holders get a say.
Yeah, they can vote on proposed upgrades, changes to the rules, that kind of thing.
And the tokenomics, how many are there?
Initial total supply at mainnet launch was 1 billion tokens.
1 billion APT. And the smallest unit is an octa, right? 8 decimal places.
That's the one. As for how that initial billion was distributed,
let me guess, community got a big chunk.
You got it. Largest slice, 51.02%, went to the community.
Okay, what else?
Core contributors got 19%. The Aptos Foundation itself got 16.5%, and early investors received 13.48%.
Interesting split. Good chunk for the community for future growth.
Yeah, that's often seen as a positive sign. And staking seems pretty popular for APT holders.
Rewarding, I assume.
Well, the sources say rewards started at 7% annually, designed to decrease slowly over time, down to a 3.25% floor eventually.
And people jumped on that.
Seems so. High participation right at the start. One source noted over 82% of eligible tokens were staked around launch. That's pretty high engagement.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Let's look at the market. Where does Aptos stand right now, based on this specific May and June 2025 data we have?
Well, anyone who's followed APT knows it's been volatile.
Definitely, especially since that all-time high back in early 2023, around $19.92.
And this recent data confirms that roller coaster ride continues.
Seeing specific price points.
Absolutely. Sources from late May, early June mention figures like $4.73, then $4.41, then maybe up to $5.20 on different days. Shows that daily churn.
Recent performance has been kind of rough.
Yeah, challenging seems fair. One source highlighted a negative 0.63% change in 24 hours. Another noted a much sharper drop, negative 12.33% in a day.
Ouch.
And a May report specifically pointed out a 13.9% decline over the previous week. And interestingly, noted that APT was actually underperforming the wider crypto market, which had seen a small, 0.5% increase in that same period.
Not ideal. What about market cap?
Based on these sources, this time frame, it's sitting in the $3.29 billion to $3.59 billion range. Puts it around rank #33 among all cryptos.
And trading volume.
Daily volume figures cited around $132 million, sometimes put in context of $213 billion total market volume, so decent activity.
Okay, let's dive into the technical analysis stuff from the reports. Key levels traders might be watching, support levels first.
Right. One source notes support around $4.55 to $4.60. Others, using pivot point analysis, identified levels like $4.92, $4.80, maybe down to $4.64 as potential floors.
And on the flip side, resistance, where it might struggle to go higher.
Resistance levels mentioned include $5, 5 pint of 23, $6 in one report. Another cites $5.20, $5.37, and $5.49. These are just derived from past price action, of course.
What about moving averages? What signals are they giving off?
Well, on June 12th, 2025, the 50-day simple moving average, SMA, was about $5.31. The 200-day SMA was way higher, $6.75.
Shorter-term average below the longer-term one.
Exactly. So one source interpreted that as a sell signal, technically speaking.
And the RSI, Relative Strength Index.
It was around 49.74, pretty much smack in the middle, neutral, suggests it wasn't extremely overbought or oversold based on recent momentum.
Now, what's really interesting is the contrast the sources draw.
Yeah, between the technicals and sentiment.
Exactly. A Coin Codex analysis on June 12th tagged the technical sentiment for APT as clearly bearish, more sell indicators than buy.
Okay, bearish technicals.
But, at the same time, the broader market fear and greed index was way up at 71. That signals greed.
So the charts look iffy for APT specifically, but the overall market vibe was still pretty bullish, maybe driven by Bitcoin or ETH.
Seems like it. That disconnect really highlights the complex picture, doesn't it? The kind of thing you have to navigate.
For sure. So looking ahead then, what do these sources suggest about Aptos's potential price moves? Remembering these are just predictions, right? Highly speculative.
Absolutely crucial disclaimer. So short term, June 2025.
Well, reflecting that recent negative trend, some predictions hinted at a potential further decrease, maybe towards $3.82. That Coin Codex analysis gave a June range between $3.30 and $4.73, averaging around $3.76.
What about looking just a bit further, like into July 2025?
Some forecasts saw maybe stabilization or even a slight positive trend, prices possibly ranging $3.56 to $3.90, averaging near $3.71. So still pretty subdued in the near term, according to those models.
And medium to longer term, end of 2025, 2030.
That's where things get much wider, obviously more uncertain. One source floated a potential target up to $15.54 by the end of 2025.
Ambitious.
Very. Another source gave a much longer-term range, out to 2030, suggesting maybe $10 to $20, but explicitly tied that to if the ecosystem keeps growing and market conditions are good.
Big ifs. Any other long-term numbers?
Coin Codex had detailed yearly projections, like for 2029, an average around $9.44, highs maybe $20.18. For 2030, average $12, highs maybe $18.21.
And they often attach potential ROI figures to these.
Yeah, hinting at big percentage gains over years, but again, you have to take those speculative models with a huge grain of salt.
Definitely. And it's worth noting the difference between these like algorithmic predictions and actual community buzz.
Oh yeah. A May report mentioned chatter on platforms like X was pretty bullish. Some analysts apparently predicting APT hitting $8 by Q3 2025.
Which is a stark contrast to those short-term bearish technicals we just talked about.
Totally. It just highlights all the different forces pulling on the price, doesn't it?
What are the main drivers the sources point to?
Well, overall market trends, how Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing, huge factor. Then Aptos ecosystem growth itself. More dApps, more users, higher TVL. That's crucial.
Institutional interest, maybe?
Yeah, that could be a factor. The technical indicators we discussed, and like we just said, community sentiment and hype. It all feeds in.
So the overall outlook described in the reports is?
Generally summarized as cautiously optimistic, despite the current volatility.
Okay, let's shift gears to the practical side. If you want to actually use or store APT tokens, how would you go about it?
Right, so the practical uses. The sources give a good rundown. First, governance.
Staking your APT gives you voting rights.
Yep, on network upgrades, parameter changes, stuff like that. Get involved.
You can also just transfer value, right? Send APT.
Yeah, using Aptos' speed and low fees, good for quick, cheap payments, or maybe even remittances.
And staking itself, not just for governance, but for rewards.
Exactly. Help secure the network, earn those staking rewards we mentioned starting at 7%, trending down to 3.25% eventually. High initial participation shows people liked those returns.
And obviously, you need APT to pay transaction fees.
Can't do anything on-chain without it. The source's note fees are currently borne to which could reduce supply over time, but that could change with governance votes later.
Makes sense. Now, storage. How do you safely keep your APT? The sources mentioned Petra Wallet.
Yeah, Petra is the official one from Aptos Labs, often used as the example. But you need a compatible wallet first. Petra, Martian Wallet, Future Wallet were mentioned options.
So step one, choose and install, like getting the Petra browser extension or mobile app from petra.app or the store.
Right. Install it, click Create New Wallet. Pretty standard.
Step two, the super critical part, seed phrase security.
Absolutely paramount. The wallet generates a 12-word phrase. The sources scream this, write it down, store it offline, paper in a safe.
Not on your computer, not in an email.
No way. This phrase is your only backup if your device breaks or gets lost. Never, ever share it with anyone. You'll usually confirm it in the app to finish setup.
Okay, got the wallet, got the phrase secured. Step 3, funding it.
Right. You'd usually buy APT on an exchange that lists it. Binance, MEXC were mentioned.
Then withdraw from the exchange to your new wallet.
Exactly. Find your wallet's receive address, that long string of characters, copy it carefully, paste it into the exchange's withdrawal form for APT, send the funds.
And thanks to Aptos speed, it should arrive pretty quickly.
Should do, yeah. Sources note transactions finalize fast.
Step 4, verify and manage.
Check your wallet balance, make sure the APT landed.
Yeah.
Then you can use the wallet to send, interact with dApps, stake, whatever. Just always remember those security basics. Protect the seed phrase, never share your private key.
Got it. Now, like any crypto asset, Aptos isn't without its challenges, right? The sources flag some key risks.
Definitely. Market volatility is the big obvious one. We've seen that in the recent data.
And the other major one.
Competition. Intense competition.
Yeah, that seems like maybe its biggest hurdle. It's fighting for users, developers' attention in a very crowded layer 1 space.
For sure. The sources even include a comparison table highlighting differences with key rivals.
Like comparing TPS transactions per second.
Right. Aptos advertises that 160,000 plus potential compared to, say, Solana's 65,000 plus C.
What about Sui? That's another Move-based chain.
Yeah, interesting comparison. One source mentions Sui potentially hitting 297,000 TPS in some tests.
Whoa.
But it's worth noting another comparison table in a different source might show a different number for Sui. These TPS figures can vary a lot depending on how they're tested.
Sure. But the point is, multiple chains are pushing hard on speed.
Absolutely. And beyond speed, the core languages differ. Aptos and Sui use Move. Solana uses Rust. Ethereum uses Solidity.
And different consensus mechanisms, too. Aptos BFT versus Solana's proof of history, proof of stake mix, Sui's Narwhal Tusk, Ethereum's standard POS, lots of different approaches.
Which leads to some criticism mentioned in the sources.
That despite the cool tech and big backing,
Aptos still struggles maybe to sustain that early hype and really differentiate itself clearly from the other fast L1s.
and that uncertainty contributes to the price volatility.
Seems to be the argument.
Okay, so bringing it all together then, we've done a pretty deep dive into Aptos based on this stack of sources from May and June 2025.
Yeah, we looked at its origins, that DM connection, its core tech Move for safety, Block-STM for speed, Aptos BFT for security, all designed for scale.
We explored its growing ecosystem, the dApps, the TVL ranking, talked about the APT token's role, its tokenomics.
Navigated that recent market snapshot too, the volatility, the price levels, those kind of conflicting signals between the technical charts and broader market sentiment.
We also touched on the future outlook, the price predictions, with all the necessary caveats about speculation.
Definitely. And covered the practical stuff, how to use and store APT safely.
And understanding a network like Aptos, it feels important because it represents this really significant, well-funded attempt to build a blockchain that could handle mass adoption, leveraging tech that originated inside a giant like Meta.
Right. So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, based on everything we've unpacked from these sources. You've got this impressive technical foundation from DM. You've got serious institutional backing from the start, a growing developer ecosystem.
Right.
But you also have that fierce competition from other layer ones, Sui, Solana, others, and this persistent price volatility.
So the question is,
Does this data suggest Aptos is truly positioned to break out, to become a real top-tier, long-term player? Or is its journey likely to stay this kind of intense roller coaster ride in a super crowded race?
that's definitely the question the data leaves you mulling over. We really encourage you to explore the source material yourself, dig deeper, form your own conclusions.
Absolutely. And just remember, this was all for informational purposes, not financial advice. Always, always do your own research before making any decisions.